So being an adult in the room doesn't mean I'm on my phone, but we're in the same place.
Right.
Welcome to the Healing Her podcast. Life comes at us fast, and keeping our balance can take real work. What would it look like to be emotionally and spiritually strong? Listen in as best friends Christy and Donna share stories of God's healing work in their lives. Donna is a licensed therapist, and Christy is a seasoned communicator. Together, they want to offer valuable tools and stories to help navigate the ups and downs of everyday life.
This is Christy Vandervoort.
And Donna Durham.
And what we're going to talk about today is emotional regulation.
Yes.
You know that Donna is a marriage and family therapist, and she never yells at her children or her husband or her dog or Marty the cat. They all live happily with regulated emotions in their home in Franklin, Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah. So, not totally true. And I will say, I don't lose it like I used to.
Oh, praise the Lord.
So, I was definitely the person in our family that I would yell at my husband and my kids. And what I'm really embarrassed to tell you is I didn't realize it was my fault.
Yeah, I think that's common.
Yeah.
I think our emotions are in there.
Yeah.
And they are telling you what to do.
Yeah. And it's like, you feel it, let it out, you know?
Right.
So when I went to school, I was 41. And one of the things that the basis, so much of the basis of what I was learning was about feelings.
Yeah.
And that feelings are language inside of you. They tell you kind of how you are and where you are, and they're important. You know, in some therapy circles, we talk about like the 8 core emotions. I'm a big fan of Chip Dodd's Voice of the Heart book. My own daughter-in-law wrote a book with her ministry partner, Mac, called In My Feels. And it is recognizing our feelings and regulating our emotions is just a super important part of, I think, wholeness and healing.
Right.
So I want to tell you a little story about how that came to change for me, how my explosions and things came to change for me. One day I was cleaning the house.
Okay.
And my teenage son was on the couch, scrolling on his phone. And I kind of went about my business, and I at some point just went downstairs and said, "Hey, can you vacuum?" And he yelled at me and said, "No." And I was like, I was so angry. And what I would typically have done was yelled back and said, "Don't you yell at me. Give me your keys. You're grounded." You know?
Yeah.
But I had been learning about emotion regulation, and I knew I wanted to be different.
Right.
So I went back into my bedroom and I started to breathe. I walked around my room and I let myself breathe, and I thought about how could I respond instead?
Can I just say that's really mature? That's
thank
like
you.
the adult in the room.
Yes. And that has been a huge growth area for me. And it really is embarrassing for me to say.
Well,
you know, in my 40s, recognizing I need to always stay in my adult. I always need to be the calming presence in the room.
Yeah.
And not, kind of lose it. So, this took about 10 minutes. I breathed through things and calmed myself down. And then I went back downstairs and I said, "Hey, when can I expect you to vacuum?" And he was on his way out the door, and he said, "When I get back." When he returned, I said, "I need to remind you that you may not speak to me that way." And he responded, "I know, Mom, and I'm so sorry. And I was going to say I'm sorry before you said anything, but I'm so stressed out." And then he poured out all the things that he had in his heart and in his mind. And we ended up sitting down at the kitchen table and processing and problem solving so many things.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? Look at this."
Yeah.
I had no idea that my erupting was causing so much disconnection. Because if I had just yelled at him and taken his keys and emotionally punished him, then, I mean, what's he going to do? Go to his room, slam the door? Right?
Right.
But I calmed myself, and it was immediate fruit. And, we're big on this podcast of saying it's not always immediate.
No, it isn't.
But that day it was.
Mhm.
And I could see right away, if I remained regulated and calm and soft, it created a pathway to connection instead of the disconnection I had been creating.
Right. And I think teenagers, especially teenage boys, how do they regulate their emotions? I mean, there's not a pathway to do that for them
without us teaching them.
Yeah. We need to model those things.
Yeah.
And when we go to that 13-year-old level or a 16-year-old level with them, then they end up having to wrestle with emotions where, they even feel like maybe they're trying to parent you.
Right.
Which, hello.
Yeah, that's not the way.
That's not a good idea.
No.
Teenagers do not need to be parenting their parents.
And parents need to be parenting their teenagers.
They do.
And they need to be the calming presence in the room.
Right.
And so with this, another way to talk about this too is because we know that people get upset.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And so we know people get upset, but here's a couple of tools we can use.
Great.
One is the pause button. And one is the do-over. And so sometimes, like even in my marriage relationship, if I'm upset about something, I'll just say, I need to pause. I need to hit the pause button, and I will come back to this. Mm-hmm. And the way I've started thinking and talking about it is I care so much about this relationship that I want to be level-headed.
Right.
I want to be in my right mind.
Right.
Because he's my favorite person.
Yes.
And so I want to treat him like he's my favorite person.
Right.
And so I might go to my room, right? Mm-hmm. And just be like, I need 10 or 20 minutes to calm down. We also might take longer than that. Yes. I will say, I'm going to talk about this first. Don't let the sun go down in your anger. I think that too many people try to solve things at night when they are exhausted.
That's bad for me.
When their blood sugar is crazy, and things escalate really quickly. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say, I think sometimes people take that verse as if it's the most important verse, and they keep trying to solve something when really it's like, if you could come to an agreement and go, hey, I know we can solve this. I want to come back to it in the morning. I'm for you, you're for me, but we don't really have the skills, even just the margin, the emotional margin.
So really what you're saying is you're communicating.
Yeah.
You're saying,
what? Yes.
Babe.
Yeah.
I am not in a good place right now.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with you.
Right. So coming back to that, if you do lose it, right? If you blow it, then okay, maybe you leave the house or you go to your room or whatever you do, but you come back and you say, can I have a do-over? Mm-hmm. I wish I had said, babe, I'm in a bad place and I need to talk about this later.
Right.
And I'm so sorry that I insulted you, or I'm so sorry for the really mean things that I said.
Right.
And it is embarrassing to me that I've been the one, to do that. And I'm super grateful for Jamie. That is super kind. And there are times, he was just talking about this the other day, there were times when we were early married, if I would be upset and he would go, I'm just going to love you anyways. And he meant it. He actually meant it. Yeah. And he actually did.
Yeah. That is amazing. I remember Jeff saying one time, I didn't know how to get along with her, but I knew I'd have to be married to this crazy woman the rest of my life. So praise God, divorce was never an option on the table for him.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful for communication.
Yeah.
And I haven't always been the best at it either.
Mhm.
But is there a marriage on the planet where you're the best all the time?
Oh, no. That's called like robot marriage.
That's robot marriage.
Yeah. And nobody wants robot marriage because we're built for connection.
We are built for connection. And that's what
Yes.
I wanted to go back to when you were
Okay.
talking to your son.
Yeah.
And being the adult in the room,
Mm-hmm.
it allowed him a deeper connection with you
Yes.
and to trust you
Yeah.
with what was heavy on his heart.
Yes.
And I think that's what we really need to remember as parents.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be the adult in the room. And that doesn't mean being their best friend. I'm
Mhm.
not saying
Right.
that.
I get it.
I'm saying be the adult in the room and be present
Yes.
with them.
Yeah.
So being an adult in the room doesn't mean I'm on my phone, but we're in the same place.
Right.
Being an adult in the room means connecting and
Yeah.
engaging.
Yeah.
And sometimes asking questions.
Yeah.
That might be hard for them,
Right.
but knowing that there's a place of trust in that
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's what your son felt that day.
Yeah. I hope so.
I know he did.
Yeah. So, part of being a human being is that we have relationships that rupture. And the important thing isn't that we never rupture. The important thing is that we repair.
Right.
And we'll probably do a whole episode on what does it look like to apologize?
Yes.
What does the other person need and those kinds of things. But emotion regulation is a really important thing. And we will have some resources that you
Right.
can access on our show notes.
Right. One thing that Jeff and I did is we went through this book study. It was the Love and Respect book study. And the main principle in that study is to come to an agreement, the two of you, knowing you're saying yes to this one thing.
Yeah.
I married a good-willed person.
That's so great.
So even if Jeff has done something that hurt my feelings or the other way around, if my first thought is not about me
Yeah.
and how that hurt me,
Yeah.
but if my first thought is, okay, wait a minute, this is a good-willed person. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Then you can actually separate yourself from that emotional trigger
Yeah.
and say, okay, we got something to talk about here.
Yes. Yes.
And then that's a healthier way
Yeah.
to work if you understand that this guy I've loved my whole life
Yeah.
has something going on.
Yes.
And he didn't mean to hurt me.
Right.
And so I'm not going to allow that to manifest.
Right.
I'm
But
going to
that's you.
regulate my emotions.
Right. And that's you being an adult in the
Yeah.
room. That the people in our lives are going to have bad days.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can say out loud, hey, you don't seem like yourself.
Yeah.
Is there a way I can support you right now?
Mhm.
Instead of, well, you sure are in a bad mood, or just like poking at them. It's
Right.
like, what does connection look like? What does it look like to stay in your adult? And be kind to that person that you love.
I want to talk about that one thing.
Okay.
What does it look like to stay in your adult?
Okay.
I think that's so important. And
Yeah.
I think just us normies out here don't understand that language.
Yeah. Well, it kind of comes from a training I'm doing right now called Healing Our Core Issues. And it's Jan Bergstrom and Rick Butts. And I actually recently did an intensive where you look at stories from
Right.
your childhood.
Right.
And what helps us recognize is that we all have parts of us that became overwhelmed in our childhood or teen years, and they kind of got stuck. Like the rest of us kept going. I have adult parts, right?
Right.
But I also may have child parts. I have teen parts that are kind of critical and judgmental, but my adult parts, they can stay grounded, cannot get flooded emotionally, can access what do I need right now, can practice some mindfulness, like
Sure.
paying attention to my thoughts, and do I actually believe those thoughts that are flowing right now? So those are some ways that we stay in our adult. Is
Yeah.
like, I can maintain my emotions. I can, or I can just say, I need a little break or whatever it is. So that's kind of that being the calming presence in the room.
Right.
I mean, maybe our best example of that is Mr. Rogers. Also Jesus.
Also Jesus. Hey, speaking of that, I love The Chosen.
Okay.
I don't want to go overboard on our time, but
Yeah.
I think The Chosen has done a remarkable job of helping us relate to Jesus.
Tell me more.
Well, I think that he is a friend, and he shows us how to be happy with people.
He's in a good mood.
He's a jokester.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes we have this idea that Jesus is this figurehead that is unapproachable.
Yeah. Almost like he's in his teenage self all the time. Critical, judgmental, rude. And that's not who he is.
That is not who he is.
Yeah.
He's the adult in the room, and
Yeah.
he loves us.
Yes.
And he would love to have a conversation with us.
Yes.
He would like to be here right now. He is
Well,
right
he
here.
is.
But he'd like to have a microphone, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, anyway, thanks for making The Chosen. And I think it's helped a lot of people make the Godhead relatable.
Yes.
And close.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's excellent. But I think this whole idea of regulating your emotions and staying in your adult and pursuing connectedness, remembering that you married a good-willed person. So let's work on that first.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Please check out the show notes for tools you can use to navigate the ups and downs in your life. As always, thanks for listening to the Healing Her podcast. If you enjoy our show, please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And be sure to come back next week for more healing conversations. You can also follow along on Instagram and Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. This podcast was created by Donna Durham and Christy Vandervoort. It was produced and recorded by Monty Godike.